On the 2nd of April, 1796, the largest theater in Europe was full. Drury Lane had more than 3,000 seats, and on this night every one of them was taken, come to see a brand new play by William Shakespeare. Except Shakespeare had been dead for 180 years. 2 days earlier, a scholar named Edmund Malone had published a 424-page book that took the manuscript apart, line by line, and proved it was a fraud. The theater staged the play anyway. The actor playing the lead, John Philip Kemble, stood on the stage that night and delivered one line in a voice the whole house understood a second way. And when this solemn mockery is o'er, they laughed, they hissed, the performance stopped cold in the middle of an act, and it never returned to that stage. Here is the part that should not have been possible. The man who forged an entire secret archive of Shakespeare, letters, poems, a lost play, even a document that wrote himself into Shakespeare's own will, was not a scholar, not a rival playwright. He was a teenage law clerk who worked alone in the evenings with a candle, an ink he mixed himself, and paper cut from other men's old deeds. What he built over 15 months fooled some of the most educated men in England, right up until the night it fell apart in front of a packed house. This is the story of William Henry Ireland. His father, Samuel Ireland, was an engraver and print dealer who had built his life around one obsession. More than any object on earth, he wanted an authentic relic of William Shakespeare. His house on Norfolk Street in London was stuffed with prints, books, and Shakespeare curiosities, the private museum of a man convinced he understood the poet better than anyone alive. His son had a confusing name to match a confusing house. He was christened William Henry, but for much of his life the family called him Samuel too, apparently after a brother who had died young. To keep this story straight, hold on to one rule. The father is Samuel Ireland, the son is William Henry. And here is a detail worth sitting with before anything else happens. William Henry Ireland was born on the 2nd of August, 1775, according to the family Bible, a document that only surfaced generations later and forced historians to correct his official birth year. He never accepted the correction. For the rest of his life, in his own writing, he insisted he had been born in 1777. Do the arithmetic on the night this story really begins, and the gap matters. He was 19 years old. He always said he was 17. His father did not think much of him. William Henry, meanwhile, had just started work as a clerk for a conveyancer, a solicitor who handled old property deeds. Every day he sat in a room full of centuries of parchment, Elizabethan leases, Jacobean mortgages, real seals and signatures nobody was counting. A boy his own father considered unremarkable had just been handed unsupervised access to every raw material a forger could ask for. On the 16th of December, 1794, William Henry handed his father a single piece of old parchment. On it was a mortgage agreement, supposedly between William Shakespeare and the actor John Hemmings, complete with a signature, a seal, and the crabbed antique spelling of an Elizabethan hand. His father was overjoyed. The very next day, he carried it to the Heralds Office, the official keepers of England's aristocratic and antiquarian records, and they pronounced it genuine. A second expert, Sir Frederick Eden, agreed with them. 2 trained authorities looked at a document forged by an untrained clerk in his teens and could not tell the difference. Years later, William Henry explained why he had done it, and the reason was smaller and stranger than anyone expected. It might occasion a little mirth and show how far credulity would go in the search for antiquities. He wanted to please his father, and he wanted to see exactly how far a room full of clever men would run with a lie once they wanted badly enough to believe it. He was about to find out, and so was his father. Once the first deed passed inspection, William Henry didn't stop. He couldn't. Every new document made his father happier, and every new document raised the price of getting caught. Over the following weeks, a promissory note appeared then letters exchanged with the Earl of Southampton, then a note supposedly from Queen Elizabeth herself, thanking Shakespeare for what she called his pretty verses. A love letter to Anne Hathaway followed, tied with a lock of hair William Henry swore was Shakespeare's own. Then a self-portrait sketch, then 2 entire unknown plays, and a rewritten manuscript of King Lear, stripped of lines he considered too crude for his idol. The boldest document came next, a deed of gift in which Shakespeare left his private papers to a family ancestor. That ancestor's name, according to the deed, was William Henry Ireland, a man who had once pulled the playwright from drowning in the Thames. The forger had written himself into his own hero's will. In February 1795, his father put the growing collection on public display at Norfolk Street, and fashionable London came to look. On the 20th of that month, among the visitors, was James Boswell, biographer of Samuel Johnson and one of the most celebrated literary men alive. According to the account William Henry gave 9 years later in his own Confessions, Boswell studied the papers a long while, then rose to speak. "Well, I shall now die contented, since I have lived to witness the present day." By that same account, Boswell then got down on his knees and kissed the papers. No independent witness ever confirmed it. The only people who ever told that story were the 2 men selling the forgery. 5 days later, on the 25th of February, 20 men signed a formal certificate declaring their belief in the papers, among them, according to the Dictionary of National Biography, the King's own poet laureate, and the highest-ranking herald in England. Scholars, clergymen, men whose entire reputation rested on telling real history from invented history. None of them could. So how did a teenager with no training fool the best read men in England? Not with genius, with patience, and with materials that were already old. The parchment was real, cut from genuine legal deeds, sitting unguarded in the office where he worked. When he needed blank paper instead, he bought old, unused sheets from a bookseller, chosen because they carried no watermark to date them. The seals were real too, torn from other old deeds and reattached to his new documents. The ink was the cleverest trick of all, and it came from an unlikely teacher. A young man working at a bookbinder's shop offered to mix him something better than ordinary ink. A few drops of acid with some other liquid, used in marbling the covers of books. Written fresh, the mixture looked wrong, too dark, too even. Held over a candle flame, it browned exactly the way 30-year-old iron gall ink was supposed to look. That was the last step on every page. Parchment, forged seal, mixed ink, and then a slow pass over the fire until the writing looked 2 centuries old. The handwriting itself was copied stroke by stroke from printed facsimiles in respected scholarly editions of Shakespeare, including one compiled by a meticulous editor named Edmund Malone. The very facsimile Malone published to help serious scholars study Shakespeare's hand became the forger's practice sheet. 2 years later, Malone would be the man who tore the whole archive apart in print. The spelling was pure invention, an antique costume with no real period underneath it. William Henry piled on silent extra letters wherever he could. Ordinary words like not and esteem and sluggard came out as not, esteem, and sluggard. Anne Hathaway's name became Anna Hathaway. It looked old to an untrained eye and to nobody else. By September 1795, the hoax had grown past a private collection into a business. Among the invented papers was the manuscript of an entire lost Shakespeare play called Vortigern and Rowena. Richard Brinsley Sheridan, the owner and manager of Drury Lane, agreed to stage it as a new discovery. The money is worth stating carefully because it went to one person only, and it was not the forger. Sheridan advanced the family several £100 against the play, either $250 or $300, depending on the source, plus a promise of half the profits once ticket sales cleared a set threshold. What every source agrees on is who received it. Sheridan's payment went to Samuel Ireland, the father, as credited publisher and guardian of the papers, not to his son. At almost the same time, Samuel Ireland launched a second, separate money stream. He published the whole invented archive as a lavish subscription folio, priced at 4 guineas a copy for the large paper edition, by one estimate roughly 2 months' wages for a working man. More than 120 subscribers signed up, many of them titled aristocrats. That 4 guinea figure was a price per book, not a lump sum, and it is a different pot of money from the theater contract. 2 separate deals, 2 separate streams of cash, and in both of them the name on the receipt was the father's. Doubters had been circling since the beginning, but by early 1796 they had a name and a plan. Edmund Malone, the very scholar whose Shakespeare facsimiles William Henry had copied from, was quietly building a case that the entire archive was fake. Before Malone published a single page on the 17th of January, 1796, William Henry sat down and signed a formal declaration. He wrote it, by his own account, purely to protect his father. In justice to my father, and to remove the odium under which he labors respecting the papers published by him as the manuscripts of Shakespeare, I do hereby solemnly declare that they were given to him by me as the manuscripts of Shakespeare, and that he was totally ignorant and unacquainted with the source from whence they came. Sit with the timing of that. Nobody had proven anything yet. The play was still weeks from opening. The scheme was still working. Money was still coming in. And William Henry chose that exact moment to put his father's innocence on paper. It didn't stop what came next. On the 31st of March, 2 days before the play was due to open, Edmund Malone published his answer. 424 densely printed pages, laying out the case document by document. The handwriting didn't match verified examples. The vocabulary used words in senses nobody living in the 1590s would have recognized. One document even referred to a theater building years before it existed. And the spelling, Malone argued, belonged to no historical period at all, invented rather than antique. The case was airtight, in print, in every bookshop in London. And Drury Lane opened the play anyway. A week before the curtain rose, the theater's biggest star pulled out. Sarah Siddons, the most celebrated actress in England, withdrew from the cast, officially due to illness. Privately, she told a friend exactly what she thought. All sensible persons are convinced that Vortigern is a most audacious impostor. The lead role fell to John Philip Kemble, the theater's own acting manager. Years afterward, he claimed he'd had serious doubts about the play from the start, and William Henry himself, writing decades later, went further, accusing Kemble of deliberately choosing one line as a signal to the play's enemies in the audience. That accusation came only from the man who had been exposed. No independent witness from the night itself backs it up. What is certain is what happened when Kemble reached that line, deep in the 5th act, and when this solemn mockery is o'er. Whatever his intentions, the house understood it as a joke about the evening itself, and the joke landed. Accounts differ on exactly which act the mood turned in, 3rd or 4th, but they agree on what followed. Laughter first, scattered and disbelieving, then hissing, then open catcalls, until the performance stalled completely, and the cast had to fight to bring the house back to order. When the theater floated the idea of a second night, the audience shouted that down too. Vortigern and Rowena played once at Drury Lane. For 212 years, nobody touched the play again until students at Cambridge revived it in 2008, purely for laughs. Within months, William Henry confessed publicly that he alone had written every document. It should have settled who was responsible. It didn't because his own father refused to accept it, on a stated reason recorded by more than one contemporary source, that his son simply was not talented enough to have produced work that convincing. Rather than investigate, Samuel Ireland picked a fight, publishing a vindication of his own conduct that November, and the following year, an investigation attacking Malone directly. He considered legal action against his critics more than once, though he never followed through. Not everyone bought the innocent act. The Shakespeare editor George Stevens, a contemporary who watched the whole affair unfold, put it sharply in writing. The hopeful youth takes on himself the guilt of the entire forgery and strains hard to exculpate his worthy father from the slightest participation in it. Samuel Ireland's reputation never recovered. He was mocked from the stage that October, and the following year his next book sold badly and lost him money. He died in July of 1800, still insisting, according to an account his physician later gave, that he had believed the paper's genuine right to the end. Father and son were never reconciled. For decades, historians argued the case both ways, and the consensus even flipped entirely at one point, with some 19th century researchers concluding the son's confession was itself a lie to protect a guilty father. Then, in the 1870s, Samuel Ireland's private papers reached the British Museum, and the correspondence inside was enough to make even his harshest accuser reverse his published position. Here is where the story has to stop guessing. There is no confession from the father. There is no independent witness who ever placed him inside the fraud. And there is no proof that clears him completely either. Every serious history of the case still lands on the same word: unresolved. William Henry Ireland was never made rich by any of it. Within a year of his confession, he was living off his own wife's clothes, linen, and furniture. In 1798, he opened a circulating library and found the one trade a disgraced forger could still run: copying his own forgeries and selling the copies as though they were the originals, forging his forgeries all over again. He also served time in a debtor's prison at York over ordinary debt, nothing to do with Shakespeare. No trial is recorded against him anywhere. None of the sources that track his life year by year mention a courtroom, a charge, or a verdict. He moved to France sometime in the 1810s, returned to London in the 1820s, and kept writing without ever landing a hit. He died on the 17th of April, 1835, still poor. His widow and daughters later applied to the Literary Fund for help and received only a token amount. He forged Shakespeare's signature, his letters, his lost plays, even his will. The one document he never managed to fake his way into was a bank balance, the file on William Henry Ireland, law clerk, forger, and for one catastrophic night in 1796, the invisible co-author of William Shakespeare. Case closed.